Hi everyone, so following on from my Steam Deck initial impressions video, I thought I'd just do a quick summary video on how the Steam Deck compares to the other handheld PCs I've reviewed on the channel. I'll firstly caveat this video with a note that it will be full of my own impressions and experiences, and that mileage will definitely vary from one person to the other. One person's most important aspect may be portability, while another's may be ease of use, while another's purely could be focused on value for money. My point being that this will be completely subjective, and I'll be really interested to hear your views. So other than the Steam Deck itself, we're comparing this against the One X player. This is the bigger 8.4 inch screen handheld and not the One X Mini that has also had a couple of releases recently. We'll also be looking at the Air Neo. This is my original unit that I've upgraded to the 2021 model using the free upgrade kit that the team at Air provided to its Indiegogo backers. And then lastly we have the GPD Win 3, which is the 1165 model. So in terms of specs, I ummed and ahed over the best way to actually show this, and in the end decided just to do a very super top level summary as we see here. The 2021 models are all relatively similarly spec'd in terms of performance. So in terms of emulation, it's not like a console will be limited to one handheld or anything like that. The Air Neo doesn't have expandable memory, while all the others allow expansion via micro SD cards. Both the Steam Deck and Air Neo have 7-inch screens, while the One X player has a bigger 8.4-inch screen, and the GPD Win 3 has a smaller 5.5-inch screen. Battery sizes also vary. The biggest number doesn't equate to the longest battery time here though, as there's just so many contributing factors at play. The weight doesn't tell the full story either, with the Steam Deck feeling the most ergonomically distributed in the hand, despite it being the second heaviest on the scales. There's a few extras that I've highlighted in the table too, definitely not the full list for each handheld, but more of the features of the handheld that I tend to use and rely on constantly while in use. Comparing the displays against one another is quite interesting. The Steam Deck has a pretty good display all around, but it's one of those areas that I like to see improved in a Steam Deck 2 if it were to be released. Out of the handhelds I have available, the One X player is probably the best spec'd on paper, but you can just see how bright it is compared to other screens. Despite being the smallest, the Win 3 screen is pretty impressive all round. It is very accurate in its touchscreen response, despite its size. The Air Neo is probably the weakest in terms of direct comparison. It's far from bad, but it certainly favours the yellows and comes across as a warmer panel compared to the rest. I haven't got a decibel meter handy, so this could be far from perfect, but I just thought I'd shut up for a minute and hold each up to the mic, just so you can get an idea of the fan run rate for each handheld. So in terms of a general run through, the Steam Deck is definitely up there with being one of the most comfortable of the devices to play. It's big, it's bulky, but it is comfortable to hold and very ergonomical. I absolutely adore the trackpads. I find them really useful, and SteamOS makes the deck the most game-friendly of the handhelds to use too, although they hopefully see support in other handhelds as time goes on too. The 4 custom buttons on the back can be very handy for both emulation and Steam games, and are sensibly placed too. For all-round gameplay, the Steam Deck's certainly really up there, but both its size and bulk does make it a considered travel companion. It will take up a chunk of space in luggage or a backpack while travelling, and you're likely not want to bring any accessories like a mouse, keyboard, USB-C hub and so on with you while you're out and about too. That said, due to its amazing ergonomics and great controls, the Steam Deck is very easy to play for hours continuously. So moving on to the GPD Win 3, the GPD Win 3 definitely stands out for portability. It's got a lot of power in its tiny shell, and having that pull-out keyboard handy makes setting stuff up or doing any config changes very achievable. Although you're not going to be writing War and Peace on the touch keyboard, it's always going to be the better option than an on-screen keyboard. The controls are pretty good with the optional grip, which adds that extra grip you'll need to play first-person shooters, although it's likely not the handheld I'd choose to play for hours and hours at a time. The fan, like the Steam Decks, can get pretty loud, but the GPD Win 3 does have a switch-like size shell. I do really like the ability to switch to mouse mode with the side switch, and the 2 custom back buttons can be quite useful, although they are tricky to get to during hectic gameplay. The biggest standout the Win 3 has over the others is certainly its portability factor. So moving on to the One X player next, this has been my most used out of the handhelds, but this is mainly because I have the optional keyboard attachment and plug it into an external GPU to use more of a Windows machine. It does have a very big, very bright screen, a very useful kickstand at the back of the unit, and some useful dedicated hotkeys at the back of the unit too for things like volume control. The kickstand is one of those things that I didn't think I'd use, but actually do use it a lot, especially when docked, as the screen can become a useful mini additional screen. And having the turbo button is quite a neat addition too, as it gives you an easy way to temporarily boost your TDP without jumping into anything else. And sometimes during a busy gameplay scene, that's all you actually need. Controls are good, but the One X player is a bulky handheld, and the bigger your hands are, the more comfortable it'll be. Conversely, if you've got the smaller hands, reaching for controls can be quite uncomfortable, and playing for the long periods of time will likely fatigue you. With that said, I do ultimately do a lot of the video editing for these videos on the One X player, and essentially use it as my laptop and have a relatively good experience while doing so. The optional keyboard accessory is a good idea and fits inside its case while acting as a screen protector, so the One X player is probably my closest laptop replacement out of all the options I have to hand here. Last but not least, we'll move on to the ANEO 2021. Both the ANEO and One X teams have released quite a few iterations since I've got my units here, but I'd likely summarise the ANEO 2021 as my closest Steam Deck that's not a Steam Deck handheld. These can occasionally be picked up at OK prices on the second-hand marketplaces, and once the SteamOS support has come on enough to be able to work smoothly on the first-gen ANEOs, I think it'll be an awesome experience for those that would like a Steam Deck but just have availability problems trying to get them. The controls are very easy to get acclimatised to, and although it's not as ergonomic as the Steam Deck, it is a comfortable to hold and play on continuously handheld. I don't really have much to complain about the ANEO and am a personal fan of the team behind it. So there we are, my little summaries of each of the Windows handhelds that I've had so far. I'll be reducing my collection soon, and although I've raised a family of gamers, we don't need these many similar handhelds. That said, if you do have any questions, queries, or anything you'd like to see in future coverage, please do let me know. One thing I didn't address in my top level summary table was the prices, mainly because Indigo prices didn't directly relate to retail prices. Some of these models have been discontinued since and so on, but ultimately you're not going to get a better deal in a handheld PC than you are with the Steam Deck. The price for performance rating is just simply amazing, and it has a lot of things going for it in terms of actual gaming. Easily one of my favourite handhelds I've owned. The Steam Deck's availability is an issue at present though, and price and performance isn't the only factor at play. As I mentioned, I've used the One X player as my laptop for quite a while, and although I've run into a couple of annoyances every now and then, it's overall been a positive experience. GPD Win 3 will always win in the portability and performance factor. Having to pull out keyboard is super useful too. And the original ANEOs are often available at OK prices on the second-hand marketplaces too. And you can get a similar Steam Deck experience from it. So all these elements and more do all factor in. One last thing I should mention, if you do decide to go non-Steam Deck and talking about the second-hand marketplaces, is being wary of where you purchase the handheld from. I can only suggest going to an outlet that you trust and you're covered with, as these are not cheap handhelds and you want to make sure that you are covered in the scenario of anything going wrong or you're experiencing any issues. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching.